Free plugins have become so much better over the past few years, so it seems like the perfect time to make a free mastering chain using some of the best plugins that I've found recently. I'll leave links in the description where you could download each plugin that I'm using in the chain. Starting off, let's take a listen to the before and after. I'm going to bounce out the mastered version and make the mix and the master both -15 LUFS to give you a fair comparison. Let's start with mid-side EQ with the ZL equalizer. Before I introduce compression or start amplifying too much, let's control the frequency response and the stereo image simultaneously with the mid-side EQ. The ZL equalizer is similar to the FabFilter Pro Q3, but it uses zero latency filters instead of multiple phase options. Now, every mix is different, but I've noticed a pattern of cutting out the side image's lows with a high pass on the side image, boosting some mid-frequency range on the side image with a bell, and then expanding the air's width with a high shelf. For the stereo image, dipping a little of roughly 250 Hz helps reduce masking significantly. Then on the mid image, a little dip in the mids helps balance out the vocal's aggressive mid resonances, while a slight boost around 3 kHz amplifies the vocal's third formant, increasing clarity. So let's take a listen to the EQ being enabled. How you adjust the filters will differ and depend on the song, but pay attention to how these effects subtly enhance what we want more of and control what's out of balance. Next up, let's introduce Intelligent EQ with this plugin, the Masker. So this EQ is really easy to use in a mastering session. Increase the masked frequency dial toward reveal, and the plugin will adjust the response to increase clarity. Now notice that the amount adjusted is subtle. You don't want to overuse this effect, since it would likely cause your frequency response to become unbalanced. Let's check it out, and notice how the master sounds clearer. Next, let's introduce even order harmonics with this plugin Fat Cat. Now, I'm well aware that this plugin looks ridiculous. If someone told me to put this on a master chain, I'd think that there's something wrong with them, but hear me out. This plugin introduces the most significant even order harmonics of any plugin that I've used and measured. Now, even order harmonics are likelier to be in key with the song since they're perfect octaves of the original fundamental note. Additionally, creating them requires asymmetrical wave shaping, which for some reason is not common with saturator plugins, meaning it's hard to find a plugin that introduces even order harmonics. The effect is very aggressive, so keep the drive at 0 dB since it's already working without more drive. Then, lower the mix and the output until you have a good balance between the original signal and the included harmonics. Up next, let's cause some maximization with this JS inflator. So this plugin is a one-to-one of the Sonix Oxford inflator with the same behavior and functions. When set to a positive value, more maximization or amplification of quieter details occurs. Additionally, the plugin introduces some moderate odd-ordered harmonics, which will complement the strong even-order harmonics that we achieved in the previous processor. Use a moderate amount of the effect, again keeping the curve value positive, and then lower the output to compensate. Let's take a listen. After maximization, let's brighten and excite with this plugin Fresh Air. So you use this plugin very subtly on a master. The effect is super aggressive, so not much is needed to make significant changes. The two air bands will add harmonics to the highs and amplify the ranges with EQ filters, making this a very effective way to increase clarity. Let's take a listen to the effect. Real quick, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description. Next up, let's cover parallel compressed highs using free plugins. So this is a cool method that really helps brighten and condense the high mids and the highs of a master. From the channel strip, use a bus to set up a parallel signal, set the send to unity or 0 dB so that the parallel signal's level is identical to the original. Then, use a linear phase EQ and isolate the high mids to highs. A stock linear phase EQ will work fine. I'll also boost the vocal's third formant to help the vocal cut through a little bit. Then, I'll use this M compressor with a soft knee, higher ratio, lower threshold, quick attack, and long release to create a highly compressed version of the high mids and the highs. Compress by about 10 dB, then use makeup gain to compensate and bring up quieter parts of the range. Next, fresh air will add some harmonics and needed brightness to the parallel compressed signal. Now once I've adjusted the filters, the compression settings, and fresh air bands to a sound that I enjoy, I'll blend the overall signal with the original via the Aux-Trax channel fader. Now I've noticed that between -30 dB and -20 dB is a good peak level for this signal, and it's a good indication that I have a good ratio between the original and the processed parallel track. However, you'll have to use your ears and make sure that you don't overdo the effect. Let's take a listen to the before and after of this track being enabled. Let's introduce a final EQ and use ZL Equalizer again. So both the original channel and our aux channel, or parallel compressed track, combine at the stereo output. So this is a good opportunity to use some final EQ to adjust anything that needs some final shaping. I boosted the lows a bit and dipped the low mids to emphasize the bass and kick while reducing masking. These filters are subtle, about 1 dB of change each. Then, I've subtly expanded the mid-frequency range and highs with side image filters. Nothing too complex here, just some final shaping to balance the spectrum and highlight the best attributes of the song. Last up, we have clipping and measurement using FreeClip. So at the end of the chain, I'm using two plugins. First is FreeClip to increase the gain and protect the signal from unwanted overs. Then I'm using GoodHertz loudness to measure the LUFS. With the clipper disabled, the LUFS is -15. So to get it to roughly -10, I'll need to add 5 dB of gain. Now you don't want to aim for exactly -10 LUFS, but I found that this is a good loudness for anything normalized while streaming. It's high enough to push everything forward, sounding louder even after normalization without completely squashing the dynamics. Additionally, we've controlled the dynamics of the track enough with saturation and maximization to only cause about 3 dB of attenuation from the clipper. Nothing too substantial or noticeable. Now FreeClipper has some good oversampling options as well. After listening closely, 4x seems to result in the most clarity. No oversampling will result in aliasing that attenuates high frequencies via phase cancellation. Too much oversampling can negatively impact transients since it requires linear phase processing. But let's take a listen to the snippet of the mix being looped. I'll enable each processor one by one so that you can hear how they work together to create the final master. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description.